In a bustling African city, where the sun spilled golden light over crumbling rooftops and the calls of street vendors blended with the laughter of children racing barefoot across the uneven pavements, there stood an old apartment building whose walls carried the weight of countless memories, whispered secrets, and unspoken prayers. The paint, once bright, had faded into a soft, weary yellow, its cracks like lines on an elder's face, each telling a story of time, struggle, and survival. Among the many doors that lined the narrow hallways, there was one that drew the attention of everyone who passed. It was painted a faded blue, its wood worn smooth by the hands that had pushed it open 1,000 times, and though it once closed firmly at night, it had not truly closed again since the evening Kofi left. The door belonged to Mama Thandi, a strong African woman with skin as dark and radiant as polished ebony and eyes that carried both the warmth of the sun and the heaviness of unspoken sorrow. She had raised her 2 sons, Kofi and Bantu, in that small apartment, their laughter once filling every corner and spilling into the courtyard where neighbors gathered to share meals, sing songs, and celebrate even the smallest joys. Mama Thandi was the heart of that building, her kindness like water that nourished every thirsty root, her words carrying the weight of wisdom passed down through generations. Her door had always been a place of welcome. No neighbor ever knocked, for all knew they could step inside to share tea, seek advice, or find comfort. But one evening, as the city's skies turned crimson and drums echoed in the streets below, everything changed. That was the evening the door stopped closing. It had begun as a night of celebration. Children beat small drums with their palms, women swayed in bright chiton skirts that painted the courtyard with bursts of color, and men clapped to the rhythm, their laughter carrying up through the open windows. Kofi, tall and proud with a smile that could light up the darkest alley, led the dance, his movements bold, his energy contagious. His younger brother Bantu, quieter yet no less striking, leaned against the wall with his arms folded, a soft smile tugging at his lips as he watched his brother shine. Mama Thandi stood nearby, her hands clasped together, her heart swelling with both joy and worry. She loved her sons more than life itself, but she could see the storm gathering in Kofi's eyes, a restlessness that no celebration could quiet. When the drums finally fell silent and the air grew still under the watch of a full moon, Kofi stepped forward, his face serious now, his voice carrying a determination that silenced even the whispers of the wind. "Mama Bantu," he said, "I cannot stay here any longer. This building, these streets, they are a cage. There is a world out there waiting for me, a life I must claim before it slips away." Bantu's brow furrowed, his chest tightening with a fear he could not hide. "And what of Mama? What of us, Kofi? This is our home, the place where our father's spirit still walks, where Mama has given her whole life to raise us. Do you call that a cage?" His words struck like the steady beat of a drum, firm and unyielding. Kofi turned away for a moment, his jaw tightening, before he spoke again. "I love Mama. I love you. But love cannot feed us, cannot give us the life we deserve. I cannot waste my youth in these walls waiting for miracles that never come." Mama Thandi reached out then, her voice breaking though she tried to steady it. "My son, this home is not a prison. It is where your roots are. If you leave in anger, the road ahead will not carry you kindly." Tears glistened in her eyes, but Kofi shook his head, already turning toward the door. That night, with only a small bag slung across his shoulder, Kofi walked out of the apartment. His footsteps echoed through the corridor, and as the neighbors peeked through their doors, holding their breath at the sight of him leaving, Mama Thandi's heart broke quietly. Bantu followed him to the threshold, hoping, pleading, "Brother, don't go like this. Stay the night. Let us talk again in the morning." But Kofi did not answer. He stepped through the blue door, and for the first time since the apartment had been built, The door was left ajar. It did not slam shut as it always had before. It remained half open, as if waiting for the footsteps that never returned. Days became weeks. Each evening, Mama Thandi sat by the door as the sun sank into the horizon, her eyes fixed on the corridor outside, waiting for the sound of her son's voice. Neighbors came and went, offering her food, kind words, even prayers, but her gaze rarely shifted. She left the door unlatched every night, whispering softly, "When he returns, I want him to know he is welcome, that his mother never turned the key against him." Bantu tried to carry the weight of the household, waking early to fetch water, mending the cracks in the walls, and working long hours at the market. Yet even he, with his quiet strength, often stood at that open door at night, staring into the silence, willing his brother to come back. The neighbors began to call it the door of hope. Some said it was a blessing, a symbol of love that would never end. Others whispered it was a curse, that Mama Thandi's refusal to close it kept her trapped in sorrow. But to her, it was neither blessing nor curse. It was simply the only way she could keep her son close, even if only in spirit. Time flowed like the river at the edge of the city, carrying seasons with it. The courtyard children grew taller, their laughter different now, tinged with the knowledge of loss. The women still wore bright kitenge, but the songs were softer, the drums less frequent. Mama Thandi's hair, once thick and black, began to show silver, though her back remained strong as she walked through the market, carrying baskets with the quiet dignity that never left her. Every passerby knew her by the blue door that never closed. And in the quiet of the nights, when the city lights flickered and the wind whispered through the hallways, Bantu would sometimes hear her praying softly, "Wherever you are, my son, may the road bring you back home. May your footsteps lead you once more to this door that waits only for you." Yet as the years passed, the ache of Kofi's absence grew heavier. Bantu, though dutiful, could not fill the empty space at the dinner mat, nor the silence in the corner where Kofi's drum once rested. Mama Thandi continued to believe, continued to wait, for she knew in her heart that some doors were not built merely to open and close. Some doors, like a mother's love, once opened, could never truly be shut again. Years drifted by in that old African apartment, where the blue door stood open like an eternal promise, its hinges creaking softly whenever the warm city breeze wandered through the hallway, as though reminding everyone that it was still waiting. Mama Thandi's once bright laughter had grown gentler, her face lined with the patient sorrow of a mother whose heart never stopped calling out for her child. Yet even in her quiet ache, she remained the strength of the building. Each morning she woke before the rooster crowed, her feet touching the cool floor as she whispered a prayer for Kofi, her lost son. Bantu, now grown into a man with shoulders broad from years of labor and eyes steady with both duty and longing, never left her side. He carried baskets of yams and maize from the market, fixed the broken pipes in the courtyard, and told the children stories of their ancestors, his deep voice echoing against the walls that once rang with Kofi's drumming. But at night, when the city lights shimmered like scattered fireflies and the silence pressed close, he too found his gaze lingering on that blue door, wishing for the shadow of his brother to return and fill the space that felt forever empty. The neighbors, now older themselves, often whispered as they passed, "That is the door that waits. One day Kofi will walk through it again." Some believed it with their whole hearts. Others shook their heads and muttered that too many years had gone, that Mama Thandi was clinging to a dream. But she never faltered. "My son will return," she would say softly, her voice steady as the earth beneath her feet. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled over the city and the smell of wet earth filled the courtyard, a knock sounded against the open door. Not the heavy footsteps of Kofi, but a gentle tap that made Mama Thandi's heart leap. A scared young black African boy, barefoot, with wide eyes and wet clothes on his thin body. He had no family in the city, no home, and he trembled as he looked into the apartment. Without hesitation, Mama Thandi reached for him, pulling him close, her warmth shielding him from the storm outside. Bantu placed a blanket around the boy's shoulders, offering him a seat at the small wooden table. That night, as the rain poured and the wind howled, the boy slept safely within the home of strangers who treated him like their own. From that day forward, many others came. An elderly woman who had nowhere to go after her daughter moved away, a young girl escaping hardship, neighbors who needed a meal or a kind word. The blue door welcomed them all. It was never closed, never locked, for Mama Thandi said, "If my Kofi finds his way back, I want him to know this door never turned anyone away." Bantu sometimes wondered if this endless waiting hurt more than healing, but he could not deny the light it brought to those who stepped through. The apartment had become more than just a home. It was a sanctuary, a place where the lost and weary found love and hope. And though Kofi had not returned, his absence had, in a strange way, made the door a gift to many others. Still, every night, Mama Thandi would sit by the window, her hands folded, her eyes drifting to the street outside, listening for footsteps she could never mistake. One late evening, as the city settled into silence and the stars stretched wide across the sky, Bantu sat beside her. "Mama," he said softly, his voice heavy with unspoken pain. "What if he never comes back?" She turned to him, her eyes glistening yet steady. "Then this door will remain open until my last breath. For if he cannot return, at least others will know the love I have for him through the way we welcome them." Bantu felt his throat tighten, realizing that his mother's hope was not just for her lost son, but for the world that still needed kindness. Seasons changed again. Mama Thandi's hair grew silver, and her steps slowed, but her spirit remained unbroken. The boy she had taken in years ago had grown tall, calling her Mama as if she had birthed him herself. The apartment pulsed with life once more, children's laughter, neighbors' songs, and the comforting hum of love that filled its walls. Yet the blue door stayed ajar, waiting, always waiting. Then one day, when the air smelled of rain and the sky glowed gold with sunset, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Slow, hesitant, familiar. Mama Thandi's breath caught as a figure appeared in the doorway, a man older, wearier, his face shadowed with both regret and longing. It was Kofi. His eyes, once filled with fire, now carried the weight of miles traveled and lessons learned. He stopped at the threshold, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Mama." Tears streamed down Mama Thandi's face as she rushed forward, her arms wrapping around him as though she would never let go. Bantu, standing nearby, felt his chest ache with both relief and the memory of all the nights he had prayed for this moment. The neighbors, hearing the cries of joy, gathered in the courtyard, their voices rising in song. The blue door, after all the years it had remained open, finally had a reason. It had waited. It had hoped. And at last, it had been answered. Moral of the story: some doors in life remain open not because they cannot close, but because love chooses to keep them open. True love, whether from a mother, a brother, or a community, never gives up, never turns away, and always leaves room for return.